What do you got, Coach? 3 things that all coaches need.
Who would you put on your Mount Rushmore of coaches?
New York or the Aces? Definitely going with the Aces.
All right, 4th down. Who has the tougher job, coaches or officials? If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? But Texas is different. Every breakdown between a coach and an athletic administrator, it costs more than time. It costs trust, it can cost alignment, and ultimately it'll cost kids. So bridging the gap exists because coaches and athletic directors are not on opposite sides. They just stand at different pressure points. So today's conversation is going to explore where expectations actually align, where they might miss, and where both sides can work better together to serve athletes, programs, and entire communities. So welcome to the Coaches Co-op. I'm your host. My name is Michael Prejean. Most people know me as Coach P. In this episode of Bridging the Gap on the Coaches Co-op, I am joined by one of the OGs in the game, all right? Deb Mize, Director of Athletics for Fort Bend ISD, 20 years, 2 decades in athletics, a leader shaped by the very hallways and sidelines that she now oversees, someone who believes the gap between coaches and admin does not have to exist if both sides are willing to do the work. So with your real hands and with your virtual hands, I need y'all to welcome to the Coaches Co-op, Deb Mize. Coach Mize, thank you for joining us here today in the co-op. I am so glad that you're here. So look, we're going to dive right into this thing, okay? This segment is called Talk That Talk, okay? So what I need you to do is talk about all of the good happening in Fort Bend ISD. You ready?
I'm ready.
Go.
Ready. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Appreciate you for having me on. I know we've been trying to link up for the last couple months, and so appreciate you, Coach P, for having me on. There's a lot of good happening in Fort Bend ISD. We've had some leadership changes in our athletic department, with myself stepping into a new role of Director of Athletics, and then we recently hired an Executive Director of Athletics, Coach Robertson from Duncanville, originally from Houston, but we've added him to our team. And so he's been a great collaborator and partner with me. So we've had some great hires there. And then most importantly, we had knocked out 3 big head football coaches hires at Austin, Marshall, and Travis. And so we're excited about what those coaches are going to do there. I brought in 3 dynamic leaders. They're all 3 kid magnets in their own way, and they're going to do great things at those campuses with being the co-campus athletic coordinator and head football coach. And then, of course, we're doing big things in the spring season here, just like everybody else is. It's the busiest time of year. Everybody thinks it's, football in the fall season, but it's really the spring that gets everybody running around and running in different directions. And so we've got some stellar athletes on the track, as always. Ridgepoint boys and girls track and Marshall girls track is tearing it up this year. And then we've got some great golf and tennis, softball and baseball going on. Came off a state run from Crawford High School boys basketball, went on a historic state run, lost in the state finals to Dallas Kimball, but we're excited about what they did over there at Crawford.
So that's, if you read, I'm a nerd, I'm a dork, right? So I keep up with a lot of things in the state of Texas, including education and educational athletics. So talk that talk is super important, because if you read the newspaper like I do, you know that Fort Bend is considering closing schools, right? Is it considering, or that's actually going to happen?
Yeah, so that did happen. We had
Okay.
to consolidate some schools, so 7 elementaries, unfortunately. It was kind of the route that our administration needed to take, and our board of trustees made the hard decision to make that happen. And so it's not something that we want to happen, obviously, but our administration, made that recommendation, and that's what we're doing moving forward.
So it's important. That's the importance of talk that talk. Because if all you do is, keep up with that side of what's going on in Fort Bend ISD, you will miss all of the other good things that are going on in Fort Bend ISD. I want to ask you about this, because you mentioned this going on in Fort Bend ISD as well. You talk about the student-centered decision making that is happening on every campus. That's a very high standard. So along with the student-centered decision making, what's one thing in your district that the community might not fully see?
Well, I think like you mentioned, Coach, that if you don't tell your story, somebody else is going to tell it for you. And I think, like what you mentioned, you see the headlines of, Fort Bend ISD is closing some elementary campuses, and different things, and all the negative and the noise. But it's our job, and I feel that athletics is a vehicle to do that, to tell that story. But I would say one of the things that I think that we do a great job of here in Fort Bend, and it's probably not just unique to Fort Bend, but we've got some outstanding campus principals that collaborate both with us and with Fine Arts, CTE. And we put programs in front of kids for kids to be involved in, because when kids are involved in something, they come to school, whether that, is playing football or playing the saxophone in the band or dancing or theater or whatever it may be. We have been intentional with making sure that our district keeps programming at its forefront and being creative with the programming that we're putting in place. And so that's one thing that we've been tasked with here in the athletic department, but also you can't get that done without great campus principals, both at our middle school and our high schools, our elementaries too, but we work mostly with middle school and high school principals. It's just without not seeing leaders where they know that not cutting programs is the key, right? Because financial constraints are with us. But that's one thing that I don't think people recognize is that we're intentionally trying to not touch our programs.
That's good. When kids are involved, they come to school. Educational athletics is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, at-risk programs, not only in Fort Bend ISD, but in the state of Texas, in the greater Houston area, all the way around the country. All right, check this out, Coach. Before we go a little bit deeper, what's something about your day-to-day that would surprise people outside of athletics?
That's a great question. I think outside the day-to-day, I think a lot of people think, they think athletic director, I think they think making schedules, working the games and things like that. But a lot of my day-to-day is coaching coaches. It's being there. It's the supportive. I've been in their shoes. I know what they're going through. I know what it was like to be on a campus for 14 years at a high school. Every day is different. The whirlwind is coming at them with all sorts of different things. And it's gotten a little bit further away from just X's and O's, the job has. So I spend majority of my time coaching coaches and leading coaches. And my job is to put the best people in front of kids to help them have a great high school experience, middle school experience. So I think people lose sight of, they're sitting in the office just making schedules and working up things. But it's a grind, and it's a fun grind because I believe education-based athletics is exactly where kids can excel.
So you talked about your job is putting great people in front of kids, putting the right people in front of kids. Just for a second, before we pivot, talk about what it takes to make that happen. I know that's something most people don't think about. Most people outside of athletics don't consider what it takes, right? They see the hire, but they don't know what it takes, the actual process to make sure that you have the right people pouring into your kids in Fort Bend ISD. So tap into that just a little bit.
Well, I think that goes well above and beyond with, I think it was during my coaching days, I would recognize, people that I was coaching against, young coaches. I was always looking for, and I still am, I have a list in my phone of people. If I get a vacancy in this sport, here's a short list of people that I'd look to hire for that position. And so I really think for young coaches right now, or even kids that are thinking about getting into coaching, and we say this all the time, Prejean, you're always interviewing. Well, it's really true. And so I'm always looking. I'm going to a coaching conference. I'm looking for, the next rock star that can come and help kids be successful. And so there's a lot of hurdles to it with the hiring of different things. Need to be certified, and you have to match up with the campus, building schedule, master schedule. But my job is to actually recruit people to be in front of kids. So I'm looking all the time, and I know my other athletic directors are of who would be good people to put in front of them, to lead them with integrity and honesty, and figure out the game of life through sport. So I think there's a lot that goes into it when you're always hiring, always hiring and looking. Simple to how I know you, right? I mean, you and I coached against each other for a few years.
Yeah.
We don't have to list the record of how things went down on that, but anyway, but all jokes aside, I mean, that's how you and I connected, right? I mean, that's what makes it work. And so I just think you're always looking to hire.
And the coaching universe, I'm not even gonna say the coaching world, right? The coaching universe is about that big.
Absolutely.
It's really about that big. So young coaches, those who may consider, veteran coaches, those who may consider wanting to make the jump one day, make sure that you understand that, listen, this universe is really about that big. All right, coach, I want to go back to the beginning. Let's go back to the gap. All right. How did you get into athletics and eventually into leadership?
Ooh, back in the gap. You called me an OG earlier. You called me an OG.
Yeah.
Oof. That stuff. So, I played high school basketball, middle school basketball, loved basketball from the jump. It was always a game that was a great outlet for me. And so when I was coming up and playing, I always knew I wanted a job around sports. I just didn't know what that job would be. Sometimes I thought I'd be a broadcaster and I'd be on ESPN one day. That was kind of the first thought I'd have. But as I kind of came into coaching and I was around coaches and coaches that coached me, I really loved the impact that they made on my life. And I remember thinking, man, this person's really cool, or I want to be like them. Specifically, one of my high school coaches, her name's Coach Cox. Unfortunately, she recently passed, but she was somebody that I thought was just really cool because she was like a superstar at the school where the kids would, whether she had them in class or didn't. And so long story, as I went into college, I went to HBU, was on the first ever women's team at HBU, now Houston Christian, and then transferred to St. Edward's University in Austin. When I got done playing, I kind of went through a difficult time of kind of like, who am I? What is my identity if I'm not playing basketball? And so I quickly realized, the impact that I could still be around kids and I could still be around sports. And so I went the coaching route. And I started, 2 years at a private high school in Katy, Texas, really small school, like 40 or 50 kids to start the whole school. I coached everything, whether I knew it or not. I coached it from cross country to softball to tennis to basketball. And because it was real small, so you did everything. And I learned very quickly that I wanted to go back to more of the public school where I could have, a bigger impact on kids. And so I went over to Hightower High School, started as the assistant coach there, worked my way, interviewed for the job to be the head coach at 24 years old. So that was kind of a wild, crazy time because I thought I knew a little bit about everything. And you quickly realize you don't. And so did that, and then worked my way into some leadership roles at Hightower. And then fortunately moved into the athletic office here in Fort Bend ISD in 2020, right during COVID.
Okay. So I want to talk about Coach Cox just for a second. All right, may she rest in peace.
Yeah, thank you.
Clearly left a mark on you, right? So what would you want her to know about the impact that she had on you?
So I appreciate you asking that question because as of last week, I spoke at her funeral service. Her children asked me to speak, and so that's the ultimate honor, right? When you're able to kind of eulogize somebody who had an impact. But I think that at the time, I didn't really understand the method to the madness when she was fussing at me, she always seemed to do it when the gym was the quietest. But it was a high standard that she had for me. And it was something that I would strive to try and impress her or try and meet that standard. And so, I think the first thing I would tell her is thank you for what she did, and I don't think as often enough, Coach P, that you would say this too, you got to give people their flowers while they're here and thank them when you have the opportunity to do so. And so I think that I would have said thank you maybe a little bit more often. But I think those high standards that she had for me is something that I took when I coached my young ladies at Hightower for 14 years, because I was able to have some amazing, talented young women that I coached that are still, some of them are coaches now. And so I just think it was the high standard that she held. I was always striving to be better. So that's kind of a few things about her.
That's good. And what I love is you talk about the impact she had on you, the high standard. You're talking about the kids that you coached that are coaches now, right? So that's the impact of Coach Cox still going, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the kids that you coached that are now coaching, whether they know it or not, right? They're probably striving to that high standard that Coach Cox set for you, that you set for them, that they're setting for their kids. And then we know some of those kids are going to be coaches one day as well, right? And Coach Cox, the spirit of Coach Cox lives on. That's awesome. That's awesome. We are in the Coaches Co-op, Bridging the Gap. I have one of the best in the greater Houston area, Deb Mize, Director of Athletics in the Fort Bend ISD. Coach Mize, you spent time at Hightower High School inside the Fort Bend ISD athletic department. And one of the things that you said is that time was influential in how you view the coach administrator relationship. So what I want you to do is I want you to take me there, right? Take me there. What happened at Hightower that changed how you see this work? Now we're bridging the gap.
Ooh, well, I think there's a lot of different things that I remember being a head coach, and you have a lot of questions, especially when you're new to the role. And so what I strive to do now, and what I strive to do with our staff here, with our team here, is to make sure we're accessible to our coaches for whatever questions they may have, or even just to listen. Because I think sometimes we just need people to listen and not weigh in and give a solution. And so what we really try and do here on our team is to be accessible and to be visible. We have such a large school district, but it's our job to make every coach on our campus, both head coaches and assistant coaches, feel that they're heard and they're seen. Because I think if they feel that and they experience that, they're going to be better leaders for our student athletes. And so, I think when I was on the campus, I wanted support. I didn't know how to actually ask for the support, but I knew I needed, somebody to ask advice to, or somebody to just listen to what I was going through, or to give me advice on how I could handle whatever situation it was. And so I had some people here that, I really looked to at the time, and whether it was in Fort Bend ISD or not, I had mentors that I would reach out to for advice. And so I think one way that I really want to try and bridge the gap, I'm new in my role here with this new director position, so 90 days in, but is to just be accessible to coaches, to not be too busy with the busyness and the whirlwind of the daily job.
Okay, so being accessible, super important, and we'll come back and touch on that. The relationship between coaches and admin, it can get tested when things aren't going well, right? So is accessibility, if you had to rank like the top 3 things, right, that can keep that relationship from being strained, or if it is strained or starts to go sour, 3 things that could bring it back, where would you have accessibility on that list?
So I would put accessibility at maybe 1 or 2, but I think the big thing for me, Prejean, is consistency. And I think the way that you bridge the gap between administrators and coaches is how I handle a situation here at school A versus school B needs to be consistent. I can't have a set of rules for some and a set of rules for others, or a set of rules for people who deem, these are Coach Mize's favorites, or, whatever the case may be. I think consistency and leadership needs to be there first and foremost. I think that's my job, is to make sure we're consistent. And I think it's like I mentioned with Coach Cox, it's holding our coaches to a high standard of accountability. In the good and the bad, right? I think if you make a mistake, which we all make, I think it's the ability to be accountable for it, to pivot from it and learn from it, which is what we teach our kids to do. And so like I mentioned, coaching coaches, I work with adults mostly now, rather than on the high school campus when I was with the kids every day. I miss the kids. I really do truly miss the kids. And that's one way I think administrators can have the gap widen, is if you forget what it was like to be with the kids, to be on the front lines with the kids every day. And so that's why I think it's important to be visible and accessible at athletic events and see things and experience what the coaches are going through. And to not sit back from an office, on the other side of the district, acting like you've got all the answers. I think it's to be in the work with the coaches.
That's good. So consistency, the visibility, being accessible. So I'm going to go out on the limb and say, all right, consistency is missing. Accessibility is sketchy. So now coaches are going silent because some distrust has maybe popped up in there, right? So 2-part question, right? How do you know when coaches are having, we'll just call them trust issues, right? And then touching back on the consistency and accessibility, how do we rebuild that trust?
Well, I think when trust is broken, I heard a quote, and I'm probably not quoting it correctly, but trust is gained by drops, but it's lost in buckets, or something to that effect. And it's so quick how relationships can be strained when that trust isn't there. And so, like you mentioned, it starts with trust. But I think the thing is, I think if you have relationships with people, and you kind of study them, and how they move, and how they work, I think you're able to kind of pick up on, if they're unhappy, or if there is a problem with, systematically, if there's an issue. But I wanted to go back to what you said earlier about how do I, bridge that gap. I think it's having those difficult conversations. I think it's calling out the, coach, are you upset about something? If so, let's talk about it, right? Instead of telling 25 other people that you're upset about something and not handling it head on. And I think sometimes as leaders, and leaders that I've worked for too, they want to avoid the hard conversations. And I just think sometimes we shouldn't do that, because what you ignore comes out later in bigger problems. And so I know it sounds real simple. It's not, but it's the ability to kind of have those hard conversations. And, maybe, Prejean, and we talk to our coaches about this all the time, if there's not a leadership position in this district for you, then I'd be happy to find, to talk to another athletic director in another school district, because, I understand everything's not perfect here. And, I want to find you something where you would be happy.
And that's important. So now we're talking grown-up skills, right? We're talking grown-up skills, having difficult conversations. The things that, going back to being on the sidelines, things that we try to teach our kids, right? When we're coaching. So those things don't change when you move into an admin or leadership role. You still got to have those difficult conversations. That's important. I had Coach Akiva Basin on not long ago, and she spoke so highly of you. Super excited to have you in that director of athletics spot. So I wanted to make sure while I thought about that in flowers, I'm gonna put my commercial in right here, and then we'll be right back. We'll get back to the conversation in a second, but here at the Coaches Co-op, we're all about building championship level systems on and off the court. This episode is brought to you by The Path for Coaches, because iron sharpens iron and real growth happens when coaches support coaches. If you're looking to level up your team culture, fine-tune your playbook, or just stay motivated through the grind, check out The Path for Coaches. You can find The Path for Coaches at Amazon.com, or you can send me a direct message on IG at podcast_with_Prejean. Unlock the power of mentoring. Discover ways to be a good mentor and find good mentors with The Path for Coaches, Volume 1, Mentoring. All right, let's get back to it. We are in the Coaches Co-op, Bridging the Gap. I'm your host, Coach P. We have Director of Athletics in Fort Bend ISD, Deb Mize, here with us. All right, Coach Mize, what is something that coaches misunderstand about administration?
I think that they misunderstand that administrators have to widen their lens. I think they misunderstand that, and I think it's a natural mistake that coaches can make, and I think I made it too. I think when you're in charge of a program, that is it. That is your program, and that is what you're in charge of, and that's what you advocate for. That's what you lead. That's where your blood, sweat, and tears go. I think from an administrative standpoint, I've got hundreds of programs under my leadership, under our leadership. And so I think the decisions that administrators have to make sometimes is from a wider lens. And so I think we need to, I think coaches misunderstand sometimes that a decision that we make it has ripple effects across districts and across programs and across schools. And so I think that's sometimes what they misunderstand about administrators.
Okay, so now let's flip it, right? Let's flip it. What's something that administrators misunderstand about coaches?
Administrators misunderstand about coaches. I think that they think that coaches are just in it for the wins and losses. I think sometimes that we look at a coach's win-loss record and they think that we might just value that. So I think that we've really taken a stance over the last 5 to 10 years to make coaching not just transactional, but make it transformational. And so I think that that's a couple of things that could be misunderstood.
That's good stuff right there. Let's lighten it up for a second. You've been on both sides, right? In the coaching box, how you're behind the scenes, and you interact with officials and coaches on a different level. So who do you think has the harder job, coaches or officials?
That's a trick question, P. And you're really trying to get me caught up.
Both jobs are very hard, very difficult jobs, right? We got great people coaching. We got great people officiating. When we look at it in, you can put it in whatever context you would like, right? It could be on a Tuesday night, it could be on a Friday night, right? Depending on the circumstance. Overall, who do you think has the harder job?
So I think that it's interesting when you say they're similar, because they are in a lot of ways, because there's shortages in both, right?
Right.
With coaching and with being an official. I actually think I'd give the slight edge to the coaches. The reason why is people have access to your email, to your phone number, to be the Monday morning quarterback on what you should have done. And I think the officials, albeit I respect them. I would never want to be one. I just think the accessibility, we were talking about accessibility earlier, the accessibility to be able to tell a coach what you think about what they did on a Tuesday or Friday night, when you're not there every day with those coaches, I'd give the edge to the coaches. It's a tough job, and everybody thinks they would do it different. And so at the end of the game, if you're my official and you blow a call, I'm not really calling you on Monday morning to tell you I think you blew it. I mean, I might email your chapter, but so I'd give the edge to the coaches.
Yeah. I've asked that question of every guest that has come on the podcast, and we're, so that's about 50 times or so I've asked that question. And I would say coaches probably have the slight edge, right? It's a close race. It's a sprint.
What do you think?
Pretty close. All right. So having officiated, okay. So I was like, let me go do some officiating, stay close to the game. Let me see what it's like. Completely new perspective. I started apologizing to officials immediately. Man, listen, my bad. I am so sorry. But I would still say officiating is difficult because you could there's a violation every possession in basketball. Talking about basketball officiating. There's a violation every possession, but nobody's coming to see the officials, right? So you have to, keep the game under control and within the rule book without blowing your whistle every possession. So it is very difficult. And yet I will still say the edge goes to coaches because, like you mentioned, people have access to you, and they're gonna tell you about your job on the sideline. If you're in the classroom, because a lot of teachers, a lot of coaches are also teachers in the classroom, right? So they're hearing it on that end as well. So I would give the edge to coaches. All right, coach, it's game time. Are you ready to play this game?
Let's do it. I'm always a gamer.
Rapid fire.
Let's go.
You're thinking, okay? We're going to go either or right here. Either or. Friday night lights or Saturday morning track meet?
Or Saturday morning track meet?
Yeah.
Friday night lights.
Okay, that was easy. All right. Email or face-to-face?
Face-to-face.
You want to build a program from scratch or fix a broken one?
Fix a broken one.
Agree or disagree? The best coaches make the worst administrators.
Agree.
Wow, really? Okay, check this one out. Athletic directors should have coached at least 10 years before moving into administration. Is there value in the trenches?
There's absolute value, but 10 is a long time.
Okay. All right. Winning, agree or disagree? Winning fixes most problems in an athletic department.
Agree.
Okay. Word association. First thing that comes to mind. Here we go. Fort Bend ISD.
Diversity.
Trust.
Consistency.
Coaches.
Invaluable.
Okay. Now, earlier you chose Friday night lights over the Saturday morning track meet, so I'm going to come back with this one. Word association for Friday night.
Community.
That's what's up. All right, Coach C, not too bad. All right, not too bad. If you were shooting free throws, you had a little pause on one of them, so I give you 90%. You money from the free throw line.
I got one for you.
Oh, okay. I'm the interviewer.
Lose by 1 at the buzzer or lose by 25?
Depends on who we're playing. Okay, but see, it depends. So like if I'm losing by 25, it depends.
State championship, lose by 1, lose by 20.
Oh, lose by 1. It's gonna hurt. It's a state championship game, but we had a chance the whole way through, and we were right there. And the other team had to make a sensational play to beat us. So I'm gonna take the loss by 1. I don't want to, now, mind you, as a coach, I've never been to the state championship game. Okay, never been to the state tournament. Okay, but if we got there and we just got our doors blown off, man, it's a good ride either way. It's a good ride either way. But I'm gonna make you beat me at the buzzer.
Okay.
I'll make you beat me at the buzzer, unless Anyway, we're not gonna go there. All right, here we go, Coach. Last 5 minutes of this episode, we call this crunch time. Okay. So crunch time is gonna go like this. I'm gonna start with 3 in the key. You can tell as a former basketball coach here. So 3 things that must happen to build trust. Okay, 3 things that all athletic professionals need. Ready, go.
3 things that all leaders need to build trust. I think an opportunity to be their authentic selves. The ability to, I think the second thing would be the ability to make a mistake and learn from it and have somebody help you be accountable, but also not punitive in that. And then I think the third thing is the ability to show people and have people have opportunities to be able to have that trust. So I think sometimes it's making tough decisions and putting people in spots to be able to have them rise to the standard you have for them.
Set your people up for success.
Set
them up for success. Okay, so that was 3 in the key. The next thing is 2 shots, right? So what are 2 of the toughest challenges that you have faced so far? You're 90 days into your role, right? So for somebody who may want to be where you are one day, what are 2 of the toughest things about your first 90 days?
I think the ability to learn how to delegate, because as a former head coach, you feel the weight and the responsibility that the program is yours. But now in a role like this, I feel the weight of wanting to make Fort Bend a destination district for coaches and student athletes. And so I feel the weight of my decisions on that. And then I think the next thing would be, I just think it's the part about learning how to be patient within the role, that not everything can be done as quickly as you want to. So I think patience is a virtue.
That's good. That's really, really good. So I wrote down 2 things on my index card. Tell me if you agree or disagree. I think the 2 things that coaches struggle with the most are delegation and effective parent communication. What are your thoughts on that?
So I definitely agree with delegation. I do think that coaches, and I think I did this too, P. I think in the beginning, when you get into coaching, you think parents are the enemy in a way of you want to avoid them. After the game, little Sally's mom's waiting on you to see why she didn't play, and you're tired and you've been working for 12, 13, 14 hours. But I see some of the best coaches that I'm around, they have the innate ability to be able to partner with parents to make it a great experience for everyone. And that is not compromising your decision making, but that is being able to have those hard conversations, those unavoidable hard conversations. But I think sometimes our young coaches think, I don't want to interact with parents because they're going to come after me, so it's the ability to have them be a part of your program, but not control your program.
And that is a skill that has to be refined, has to be learned, has to be taught. Young coaches, make sure you have a mentor, right, who is good in that area. If your mentor is not good in that area, then the two of you go find a mentor who is good in that area. The mistake that I made my very first year as a head coach, I was like, man, I'm not dealing with parents. So I'm guilty of it. And then the number one thing I wanted to fix going into year 2 was my relationship with my parents. So young coaches, if you think they're coming for you, so you're going to avoid them, listen, somebody's going to come for you whether you avoid them or not.
Absolutely.
Go ahead and build those solid relationships. Because here's the truth. Every program is going to have 1 or 2 or maybe 1.5 of those parents. But the majority of your parents are going to be great. Majority of them are going to be great. All right, coach. And one message that both sides, coaches and administrators, need to hear. What you got for us?
And just one, P. Fight the good fight. Stay in the fight. And I say that right now, more than ever, our profession is being criticized, and some criticism is warranted. However, keep showing up for kids and show up for others. And the way that we can do that is showing up every day and stay in the fight. Fight the good fight. Fight the fight for kids. And be there for our youth, because they need it. They need role models. Some of them don't have anybody at home, and athletics can be the vehicle for that. So stay in the fight.
Fight the good fight, ladies. Fight the good fight. Last question, Mize. If a former player described you in one sentence 10 years from now, what would you hope they say?
Ooh. I would hope that they would say about me that I made a difference in their lives, that I am the Coach Cox for them that she was for me, and that my impact and my legacy is still something that they think about on how they are and how they interact with others in their lives today.
Outstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, Deb Mize, Director of Athletics, Fort Bend ISD. Coach Mize, thank you for sharing your journey and your wisdom. Listen, everybody, if you are walking away with new insight or new energy for your team, for yourself, or your program, we did our job. If you enjoyed this conversation, you know what to do. Hit the like button, follow, subscribe for more insights from top athletic professionals like Coach Deb Mize. Leave a 5-star review if you're listening on iTunes. Your ratings and reviews help other coaches find us here in the co-op. Help us grow the co-op community where coaches do what most people can't. I say this all the time. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. For Coach Deb Mize, I'm Coach P. We'll see y'all next time in the Coaches Co-op.